With Stranger Things ending, Netflix faces a big question. Can they make another show this iconic, or is this the end of an era? Well, I was going to ask you guys, why do you think a story that leans so heavily into 80s nostalgia resonated with modern viewers? What was it about Stranger Things that drew even young people who weren't even born in the 80s to it in the first season?
I feel like it leans so close to the 80s styles. For us, it might seem old, but for the modern audience, it's like refreshing and new to them. That's why I kind of feel like that's why they gravitate towards it.
And I always say, I don't know if you feel this way, Caution. It almost feels like this generation's Harry Potter. Because we watch these young kids, go from 10, 12 starting off, similar to the ages of the cast of Harry Potter. Now they're kind of young adults at the end. So it's like you kind of grew, if you were a kid when these guys were kids, you pretty much grew up with them.
Right.
You got to see, all of the main characters, 11, Mike, Will, Lucas, Dustin, kind of grow up.
Yeah, you're right. And I don't think I see that too much in shows where you basically see the cast, you grow up with the cast.
Yeah. Now, part of that is, you don't see it in a Netflix show because they like to cancel stuff. They don't keep shows past, like, outside of Stranger Things, they don't keep shows going. But I was going to want to ask you, has Netflix focused so much on quantity over quality over the years that its ability to create shows like Stranger Things, they seem to have lost that ability, right? Because it's like back when Stranger Things came out in 2016, I would argue Netflix, they focused a little bit more on the quality. And less so, because it wasn't just Stranger Things. It was House of Cards. It was Orange is the New Black. It was, they were kind of riding. Now it's like Netflix strategy seems to be to produce as much content as you can. Quality comes second, if it comes at all.
Around that time, they barely had little to none competition, if not any.
Yeah.
Because when now all these other streaming platforms coming out like Prime and stuff.
That's true.
So now they basically in a race and competition of putting out, whether it's quality or not, it's like they just putting out anything.
Yeah, and it seems like, that's part of the reason why we haven't seen another Stranger Things. It's like, I guess the closest to that people would argue was maybe Squid Game.
Yeah, Squid Game.
But even that show is kind of wrapped up and done, so I'm not sure they can ride that.
It got one little part. It got one more part that's supposed to be coming out.
Yeah, I heard about that. So, but what do you guys think? Do you think that's the reason why we haven't, they haven't produced anything at that level more frequently?
Yeah, it's too many competition. The market is way more oversaturated than it was at the time when it was 2016.
But as it relates to Stranger Things, well, what do you think about the future of the show, right? I'm talking post-season 5. They do kind of hint that they're going to continue maybe to tell stories in the world, but they make it very clear that by the time this season is over, the story of 11 and her group of friends is over, right? So the world, they're going to probably tell more stories in it. So, but what do you guys think? Is it going to be, it seems like that seems to be what the direction they're heading into, like spin-off territory.
Yeah, spin-off type of thing.
Yeah.
Yeah. I love the world of Stranger Things, so I wouldn't mind seeing more of it.
But do you think that, because I was thinking about this, is the decade going to change, right? Because so much of what defines Stranger Things is the 1980s, right?
Yeah, it's
the
in the
80s,
80s. So.
The time, the place. We're watching them go from 1980 at the start to 1987 towards the end. So I'm like, well, is the show going to take... I think they can still pull it off if it was like early 90s. Early to mid 90s. They could probably still get away with it.
You can say early 90s kind of is in the 2000s because you kind of can pull it out just a little bit. Still keep that 90s culture things going on and have some of the 80s vibe.
But I got to admit, y'all, once we get into the internet era, like Stranger Things doesn't work with the internet. Like it's a show that only works in an internet, in a world before the internet.
So I feel like that's a good stopping point in the 90s.
What if they do a prequel and this take place in the 50s, 60s?
Well, then doesn't it become It? Like y'all saw the new It miniseries that's out right now?
I was thinking
that takes place in the 1960s involving kids and their fight. Because it's like, that's already being done. That's kind of the problem there.
I was thinking Back to the Future.
Well, what about, I was just going to say, what about the future? Like, what if they can make something about like the future?
Well, at that point, does it stop becoming Stranger Things? Isn't the appeal of Stranger Things
is to give you an
80s, that nostalgia, take you back to a simpler time? Whereas when it gets into the future, it suddenly becomes. I don't even actually disagree with Caution. That in itself could be a great show. Yep. But I'm just saying that, it's just something different. Maybe, and who knows? Maybe that's for the best.
I would like to see the 60s, 70s, mid 60s, early 70s.
Well, what story are you going to tell them?
So hold on, is they going to take it back, or they going to just keep going to the? You say they ended in what 87?
Yeah, like this season is taking place in 1987, and you kind of see, I guess our heroes on their last adventure facing the big bad. But after that, I mean, based on what I'm hearing from them, they haven't talked about it much, but I get the sense that whatever happens next is going to take place after these events.
Okay, so it's gonna be out of the 90s. It's gonna be in the 90s.
It could be I think you're right, Caution. Whereas like the 90s is where I would place a bet. Now if it's the 2000s or the 2010, that would be surprising.
Yeah, it will be.
But I'm like, well, how are you gonna pull this show off?
I would like.
Yeah, because now you in the internet era.
Yeah, because
so,
now it's like, I always thought the appeal of this show, Caution, is that it very much feels like Scooby Doo. Where you're watching like the heroes go to solve mysteries, they're going into haunted houses, they're looking for clues, and it's like, and that works because this is before the internet, so they have to investigate and all this other stuff. But it's like, the time you get to I would say the 2010s, it's like, why ain't you online?
No, if you go from the 90s to like early 2001, 2000,
yeah, you probably can still do it.
Like the Y2K era.
Yeah, Y2K. Yeah, AOL dial up.
Yep, dial up.
You can still make it work.
But no, I'm excited to see what direction they gonna take the world in. But I really don't want it to end because, like you said, we don't have shows like Stranger Things that's coming on Netflix anymore.
But guys, what do you think? Is Stranger Things the last great Netflix show? Let us know in the comments. Give the video a like, subscribe. Hopefully help us get to maybe 400 subscribers if you can.
No, we're gonna push it. We pushing it to
500.
Yeah, 500.
I believe in my soldiers. I need y'all. Get us to 500. We've been trying, and we got a surprise for y'all. Caution Toons.
You heard him, and we're out.
Peace.